Some noises are coming from you. Anyway, I'm start. Already we are on live now. Today, media conference with Lal Goel, sorry, which is brought to you by V4 News, Karu News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan and Organ Donation India Foundation. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today, before I will go on the topic, I would like to inform you that the country is celebrating Buddha Purnima. Buddha Purnima is the celebration of birth of Gautam Buddha, and this year it is being observed on May 16. His birth anniversary is also known as Buddha Purnima or Vaisakhi, Buddha Purnima or Vaisak. As per the Hindu calendar, Buddha Jayanti falls on a full moon day in the month of Vaisak, which usually falls in April or May. Buddha Jayanti 2022 will mark the Lord Buddha's 2584th birth anniversary. However, it is actually based on the Asian lunisolar calendar, which is why the dates change every year. Lord Buddha was born as Prince Siddhartha Gautama on the Purnima Tithi full moon day in 563 BC in Lumbini, modern day Nepal. In Hinduism, Buddha is considered as the ninth avatar of Lord Vishnu. Lord Gautam Buddha preached dharma, duty, non-violence, harmony and kindness. He left his worldly possessions and princedom at the age of 30 to lead a life searching for the truth, seeking penance in the hope of liberating himself from suffering. Media conference with Lal Goel on this auspicious day wishes you all a very happy Buddha Purnima. Now coming to our today's topic, and today, as you know, today we are going to have Thought Leadership series. Crisis moments create opportunity. Problems and crises ignite our greatest creativity and thought leadership as it forces us to focus on things outside the norms. Thought leadership is fundamental in business today. Excuse me, Professor Arya, some disturbance is coming from your side. Is any other devices on there? Two devices are on. Please switch off the one device if you have on the two devices. Yeah. So thought leadership is fundamental in business today and consists primarily of finding and sharing great information in a way that attracts and retains. Thought leadership is when a leader's thoughts are being used by leaders to lead others. Thought leadership is influencing a narrative by understanding what needs to be done. Thought leadership is the expression of ideas that demonstrate you have expertise in a particular field, area, or topic. A thought leader can be recognized as an authority in a specific field and whose expertise is sought and often rewarded. That can be an expert, a historical figure, or a wise person with worldly impact. Many strive to become a thought leader in their respective fields. It takes dedication, patience, strategy, and education. In this series, we will be asking straight questions and we expect a straight answer from our thought leader. And today our thought leader is Professor Dr. R.K. Arya. And the today's topic is Rising Inflation and Health of Economy. Professor Dr. R.K. Arya is a professor of international economics at Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Faridabad. He is triple postgraduate in statistics, econometrics, finance, double PhD in finance and economics from Delhi University. He worked in applied economics and social welfare, Government of India. He contributed hundreds of articles in leading economic newspapers. He is guiding PhD scholars on various applied topics. He possesses thorough knowledge of social welfare development public policies, education, and employment. He attended many conferences, workshops, and presented papers. Presently, he is teaching MBA students. He has good understanding of international economics. He is having practical experience in education planning in planning commission. Welcome, Professor Dr. R.K. Arya on our show.
Thank
Professor
you.
Dr. R.K. Arya, today our topic is under the thought leadership. The topic is rising inflation and health of economy. You are an economist. You are an expert in Indian and international economics as well as Indian economics. So I am going to ask straight questions to you, and I expect straight answers from you. So now my first question is, what is inflation?
The rise in prices from the base year, which is a normal year, is a measure of inflation, is expressed as inflation, that is the prices going up from the normal year. At present, India has got 2011-12 series where the base year has been taken as 100, and now we are seeing that the inflation year on year, once it is taken as the base year, as the 0 year, and then we continue to measure the inflation by what exactly how much the prices of the general commodities have risen. The general commodities are those commodities which are consumed by the consumers. And there is another measure of inflation called WPI, that is wholesale price inflation. It is concerned with the producers, because the producers are those who also purchase commodities on wholesome basis, and the consumer inflation is also called retail inflation because the commodities are purchased in the retail market. So when we measure it, it is year on year, and if we measure it from the base year, it has no meaning because the inflation keeps falling up and down over the years. So from last year to this year, and particular one, if say for example, we are looking at the inflation in April, so we will have to compare it with the inflation last year. That is the meaning of inflation. So particularly when the price rise is more than the expected, and there are many situations that the price rise hurts the people, depending upon the fiscal policy and the monetary policy. So what is the living condition of the people across the country? Because India is considered to be divided into many strata, like the very low income group called the most poor, and then we have poor, and then we have got that is lower middle class, then the middle class, then the middle upper class, and then the upper class, and then we got elite class or super class. So how they are influenced by the inflation, how they are impacted by the inflation, it is being studied, and with the figures which comes in the public domain or in the newspaper, or the journalists also keep discussing, and the policy makers also are concerned with it, and government also plunge into action when the inflation is very severe.
Okay. Okay. So according to you, yes, we have mentioned that the year to year, it means if the inflation right now is about 7%, so we have to compare with the inflation of the same month of the last year. Is it correct? Okay.
Yes.
So it means if there is a last year, the inflation was about 4 or something. So it means the increase in inflation shows that that much is the cost has increased, or cost of living has increased.
No, sir. Then in that time, it will be considered as a 0 year, and then from 0, it has gone up to 8%.
So you mean to say that if it is 7 point some percent now, it means the April last year was considered to be 0.
And
is it
from
correct?
There, it has risen to 8%.
So it means in 1 year, almost 7% cost of living has increased.
It is now 8%, very precisely,
8%.
since we are discussing the topic of inflation.
So it means 8% cost of living has increased.
Yes, that's right.
Now, you have mentioned that there are consumer inflation and one is wholesale inflation. What is that?
That is, consumer inflation means that the consumer basically keep buying these some products like they consume daily item. You can say wood, steel, anything which the consumer consume. It could be footwear, it could be clothing, it could be material which we eat. It could be fuel, it could be electricity, it could be services also. Education, health, entertainment, and all the services are also included, but with a different, weights. That is, importance of each one of them is different. Roughly 45% is devoted towards food, which contains protein, vegetable, fruits, and the cereals. And then we have got what is called fuel and electricity. It has got certain weight of 13%, and then we have got that is what is called core inflation. Core inflation is a manufactured inflation. That is all the products which are manufactured. Say, for example, footwear, clothing, and anything using wooden almirah, cupboards, and a mobile phone or anything which is manufactured. So that is called consumer inflation. That is called that is measured with CPI, Consumer Price Index. These are the indexes which help in calculating the rise in inflation due to by taking the various commodities as their weights. That generally how much a person consumes milk, how much it consumes tea, how much consumes it coffee, how much consumes as such, there are more than 300 items which are taken into account, and these are multiplied with the prices. So, weighted prices averages are calculated, and these are compared to the base year. In WPI, we have got largely, that is, secondly, these taxes are also included in consumer prices. In wholesale prices, these are in the wholesale market, like that is wood is sold in the wholesale market, and then cobalt, nickel, metals are sold in the wholesale market. We are getting crude from the wholesale market. We are getting cement from the wholesale market. So producers are using on wholesale basis, on wholesome basis, and then their prices are different. When their prices are different, so weights are also different from that. The wholesale takes into account more of the food and the more of what is called core, and services and other are not there in WPI. So therefore, WPI also affects sometime, but it is the CPI which worries more. WPI sometimes we can control and sometimes we cannot control. So in consumer price index, everything is taken because it is the retail inflation and how the wages are also affecting. It also at one point in time becomes a part of the CPI.
Okay. So, according to you, the CPI is, if it is increasing, then definitely the inflation is going up and it is affecting the cost of individual. Now, my question to you is, who is responsible for inflation, especially in India? Is it the factors like the cost of this food grains or the oil or electricity or taxes, or it's a combination of all these things which is creating which are responsible for inflation?
See, you have rightly captured the significance of it, but there are hundreds of factors which affect the inflation. Particularly, India is a low demand economy. Low demand in the sense that roughly 80% of the people, those who live in the rural or urban area, they are the expressions of low demand. And when there is a low demand, inflation will remain cooler. There will be no problem with the inflation at all. But sometimes you must have seen in 2005 when Manrega was introduced, and the government started doling out roughly 70,000 crore, 35,000 crore, whatever. It kept fluctuating over the period of time. And then it was seen that the poor, when they are getting the wages in their hand, and when their productivity is not directly measured, they are not contributing to the output as such, because they are given the rural work to do there. And how much rural work can be correlated with the productivity, it is a matter to be seen by the government only. But since unemployment rate was very high those days, So in order to do that, the UPA has come out with the Manrega Act, that is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, under which that is the 100 days wages are required to be given to the poor, those who are unskilled and working on the farm labor as farm labor. So in those cases, when 70,000 crore will be pumped into the economy, definitely the price rise will be there because their demand for the food, because in rural area roughly 70% is consumed for the food item, 30% is spent on the footwear, clothing and other articles which are there in the household. But when it comes to their consumption, so they consume roughly 72% on the food item. Education is free in the rural area, and that is the expenses on health are also not that much serious. Otherwise, also the service sector has got a weight of 15%, so the inflation was higher. Subsequently, you must have seen that we are also dependent on energy from abroad. That is, we are importing fuel. Sometimes we good quality coal is also imported from there. So prices of electricity are also going up. Last time in the election of UP, you must have seen that electricity was a big problem. That is, the farmers were asking that the UP is charging too much of the electricity bills. So then Adityanath has announced the that is free electricity for the farmers, or 50% of the electricity will be exempted. But in some cases, that is, you must have seen in Delhi that this AAP government has been giving free electricity to up to 200, and then from 400 to 800, it is giving 800 rupees as subsidy. Like this, they are giving freebies to the people. Basically, that is disturbing the equation of inflation at a later stage, and there is no systematic announcement or systematic plan or systematic policy, that rather, because the election commission or the Supreme Court must have objected. Supreme Court has objected that this freebies, when you announce that giving the bikes to the people or scooty to the people, that is the students and all that. So the Supreme Court has touched upon the issue that when you announce these things, you must give it also. You should show in your budget that how will you allocate. But this cannot be taken as seriously because the conflict between the executive and judiciary is always there. So basically, in India, the politicians are responsible for.
Yes, Mr. Professor Arya, I will just stop you here. You mentioned that the freebies are causing giving all the Manrega. Because of that, the inflation has increased. Now, my question to you is, inflation, because the money is there, so in the circulation, so the more purchasing power increased. Correct? If I'm wrong, you can just correct me. So
Yes.
so do you? My question, next question to you is inflation good for Indian economy?
Uh, Last time, this chief economic advisor has just touched upon, and I verified the data that India is acclimatized to 7% inflation, and when we have calculated the average in the last 5 years, 50 years, 5 decades, the average inflation is 7%. But this government has come on the promise of inflation to remain low as much as possible, and therefore it succeeded up to 2018. That is keeping it up to around 4 to 5%. And this is the reason that the nominal anchor for the inflation accepted by the RBI, which the government also consented with it, that it was in the range of 2 to 6%, and 4% will be the nominal anchor. But now the inflation is exceeding to 8%. It has got something with the money supply. Money supply, if there is a distress with the people living in low income groups, and also the MSMEs, when it is a situation that the liquidity is required, liquidity of around 16 to 17% of the GDP is very important, because this much is needed as per the value of the GDP. If the value of GDP is less and the money in circulation is more, RBI can control the liquidity already. Eventually, with the help of several instruments, it is vested with so many instruments that it can control the inflation of its own. it does not allow it to go to increase the liquidity in the system. So liquidity measure is not a manual process, it is a technical process, and it is on the radar of the RBI. So liquidity as such is not responsible for the inflation, because as there is a spurt in the activities, GDP is growing, so money in circulation remains there, and the interest rate are also adjusted accordingly. But when there is an alarm bell, then definitely the liquidity will be questioned, because this inflation hurt the poor the most.
So my question is still remain: is inflation good for Indian economy? Yes or no?
It depends upon environment to environment, that when the economy has to grow, the inflation should not increase more than 5%. Otherwise, the wage rigidities are there, and the wages are of no concern to us as such, because roughly 8% of the 8 crore of the people are getting the salaries, other are the wages, and the wages are very flexible. We are a very bad labor market. India is a very, very bad labor market, worse than the Bangladesh. So therefore, the inflation should remain under control up to it should not exceed 4% or 4 to 5%.
Okay. So, according to you as an economist, how long inflation can stay elevated? Because right now it's above, as you are saying, it's touching 8. So, how much time? And it should be between 4 to 5. So, my question to you is, how long inflation can stay elevated?
See, the inflation was under control even when the energy prices were up to $100 per barrel, because the government was getting excise duty. The inflation would have been still lower. Now the crude prices have touched the value of 130, $140 per barrel. So definitely inflation will continue to soar higher. The Ukraine-Russia war has added additional price pressure on the Indian economy and other economies of the world. But India, because it imports roughly 85% of its energy requirement from the Gulf countries, so therefore the inflation is disturbed. Inflation is disturbed due to the Ukraine-Russia war primarily, or otherwise the consumption of that is last year after COVID, the consumption in United States has gone up drastically up, and the prices of the commodities, that is minerals and metal, were already high, but their utility is very less, and it is limited up to the elite class. So the inflation will remain elevated up to 6.2% till March next financial year.
That is your.
It is beyond the range, and it is possible only when, and it is true with when the RBI will continue to raise the interest rate up to 100 basis points. It has raised
So
up to 40.
that's why my question to you is, what government can do to bring down the inflation?
The government can do only something. RBI will have to pull up, have to raise the interest rate by 100 basis points to control the inflation up to 6.20%. Beyond that, we will have to tolerate the inflation.
So
if
only
it is 6 point, if it is 6 point.
Sorry,
If
my question to you is, it means that it is in the hand of RBI to control the inflation, is what you are saying. So my next question is, why RBI did not act when inflationary expectations were high? Because this was seen very clearly when the crude prices have started increasing, when the Ukraine war started. RBI has acted very recently. I think the last month only, to increase the repo price. So my question is, why RBI did not act when inflationary expectations were high?
Actually, the sensible people tell that the RBI should have smelled the coffee when the WPI was beyond 7%, in July 2009. It began to rise and now it is almost 15%. And this WTI comes down to CPI, and ultimately it collapses with the CPI. It is not collapsing, both are rising together. So that way it would have acted from January, but the RBI governor was saying to the government that the excise duty of petroleum and all that should be cut down, and it will take care because different strata are affected differently by the inflation, and nowadays different cities are also affected with the different inflation. Nowadays India does not have any meaning for the inflation here. It is 8% all India average. It is in Karnataka or it is in Bangalore, it could be 9.5%. In Calcutta, it is around 10%. In Uttar Pradesh, it could be now 8 to 8.5%. Average is 8%. But there is an escape clause. The escape clause is that the nominal anchor, as I told you, is 4%. The RBI should have raised the inflation when it was going beyond 4%. But since RBI has got many other functions to do also, the government of India is the largest borrower of money from the RBI, and therefore this time the government is borrowing roughly 15 lakh crore because of the COVID fiscal deficit. The budget in order to complete the budget of 40 lakh crore, it required 15 lakh crore of the borrowing from the banks. So the yield goes up. So when the yield goes up and interest rates remain low, then the government can enjoy the better, borrowing power, so that the repayment of what it has borrowed will be less, in comparison to when the interest rate is higher. So this was deliberately done because the RBI was hobnobbing with the finance ministry, and escape clause was there in the MPHC Act in 2015. So that was taken a clause. As such, the economists believe that the government is making mockery of the RBI. So this is the reason it enjoyed the escape clause, and it allowed the inflation to surpass 4%, and now it is acting to control the inflation. It will definitely harm the people, particularly in the lower strata of the income.
Professor Arya, you have seen the functioning of the government very closely. You have also seen the functioning of RBI. Is RBI is an autonomous body which they always claim that RBI takes their own decisions? If it is, then why RBI has not taken the timely decision to stop the rising of inflation? Professor Arya.
This is the first time the MPC has been constituted, because RBI was, monitoring the inflation with a single estimate of the inflation, and when it suited it that the inflation is going soaring higher, the interest rate had gone up to 9%. You must have seen in the UPA time also. That is, the fixed deposits have gone up to touch to 9% also. Now the saving rate have come down to, for 3 years deposit of 3 or 5%. It is too low for the people. So therefore, the government deliberately, constituted the MPC, Monetary Policy Committee, in which there are 6 members, three government officials and 3 non-government officials. They are trying to convince the RBI. RBI has got little role there, because these are the MPC members, those who have got the veto power. If the interest rates are to be raised or not to be raised, the veto power is with the MPC. So as such, the interest rate were allowed to remain low, to be enjoyed by the MSMEs and the weaker section of the society, are the people taking loan for the vehicles and the constructions, so home loan and all that. So as such, that both are working in consent with each other, agreement with each other, the government and RBI, because the flexibility lies with the MPC. So as such, RBI, whether it enjoys the autonomous structure or not, it is different when the MPC is there. MPC can influence the interest rate and the basically the liquidity condition. In fact, has to be decided by the RBI. When MPC rules over the interest rate, then RBI has no role there.
So you mean to say that the independence of RBI has been curtailed by appointing MBC? You mentioned MBC word. What is the full form?
MPC, Monetary Policy Committee.
Okay, MPC. So when it was constituted?
In 2015, after the NDA came into power.
Okay. And but it was not opposed by the RBI or anyone else, so that the power is with the RBI earlier has been curtailed.
No, since as per the books, RBI is a constituent of the government only. RBI is a constituent of the government only, and it takes salaries and other administrative power from the government only. So therefore, RBI has, as such, is not a UN body, and it can deny or it can accept, because there will be some discussions among the people of the RBI and the government, and whether MPC has to be there or not there, they will have to accept if the government says that the dealing of these MPC members will be fair. But MPC members cannot be largely fair. As such, the MPC was expected to be there, and therefore the government continued to influence the MPC, or the MPC members understand the compulsions of the government and why the government has appointed them, and why the government has brought in the MPC. So therefore, they can veto it when RBI strictly denies it.
So, Professor Arya, we can term RBI governor as a puppet under the purview of MPC, because if he cannot come out, suppose he has put out the repo rates which he declares, and the public is under impression that the governor of RBI takes its decision, but it's not his decision. He has to get it vetted from the MPC first, and then only he can declare in the press conference that the repo rate has been increased or decreased. Is it correct?
No, but for off-cycle interest, rate, the meeting was quickly held and it was vetted by the MPC only.
So without, it is a pre-vetting by the MPC or post-vetting by the MPC?
No, it was vetted by the MPC when the decision was taken.
So correct.
Okay. Because it cannot change the interest rate unless it is vetted by the
MPC. So now you mentioned while giving the reply in one of question, you mentioned about the excise duty on the fuel, and you have also mentioned about the taxes which other states are charging. So it means that inflation has nothing to do directly with the RBI only. The inflation also have lot of impact because of the policies of the government as far as the fuel policy or the excise duties on fuel. Is it correct?
I tell you one thing, that the government is going on a wrong path absolutely since 2014 in managing the inflation, are keeping illusionary, that is, it is creating illusion among the people that we are a low cost economy. Absolutely it is not. When the government kept the inflation at 4%, it was after demonetization as well as the introduction of GST. During that, how many MSMEs have been killed, and how much unemployment has taken place? The government has nothing to do with it. When the demand is not there, definitely the inflation can remain up to 4%. It was a deliberate decision which the government has taken. Most of the people do not know it, that what the government is doing. Government has messed up the entire fiscal policy, and entire monetary policy is going in the wrong direction. You will see the exchange rate is also being disturbed. So government has got I am giving the reply to your question, that the government has got larger role in maintaining the inflation and in giving the direction to the inflation. It is the government which has disturbed the inflation. Otherwise, roughly around 16% of the oil was extracted by the ONGC by 2023, it was roughly to be 23% of the total oil requirement in the country, and now it has come down to 12% because the government has tied the hands of the ONGC that no further exploration has to be done. So all is being done with the with the self-style decisions of the government, whether they are following the textbook policy and the general policy environment in other developing countries. So by chance it is not happening. So therefore the spurt in the inflation, though the government was optimistic to keep it around 5.5%, even though Ukraine war was there. This is the reason that the government has been getting the excise duty since the prices are pretty low in the international market, and now these are higher because of the higher consumption ultra loose policy in the United States of America and in the Europe and the UK. The inflation is soared there because they kept the ultra loose policy after COVID. So that is a different. The money in circulation was is deliberately increased there in the advanced countries. Here the money supply was perfectly all right. It was only to assist the MSMEs and all that. What I mean to see, it is a long discussion. The government has got a larger influence on the inflation through its fiscal policy. Fiscal policy was designed to keep the fiscal deficit under the FRBM of 3%. But now you can see it has gone up to 9%. Why it has gone? Though COVID was there, COVID was an extraordinary situation, but still the inflation was required to be kept under control so that the consumption level, in fact, has to be maintained across the spectrum. The consumption level in some cases has gone up drastically, and the consumption level in some cases has gone down. But the government says that it is spending roughly 1.5 lakh crore on the food subsidies and 2.5 lakh crore on the fertilizer subsidies. Like this, that it is taking care of, you must have heard on the media that the government is taking care of the poor people the most. The poor people can be taken care of. I say that the poor people need not to be taken care of. It is the philosophy of the economics that each person in the age group of 18 or 16, either he should be studying, he or she should be studying, or he should be working, except 3% of the people, which should not be doing anything because they can be ill or they can be they are enjoying their life. But here you see that in this particular environment, the people are enjoying more of politics and doing less the economics. So this is the reason, one of the crude reason I am saying, not a very well refined reason, that the people in fact are being allowed to suffer with the inflation, but the government will say that you digest the inflation because we are giving you the free ration, we have given you Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana and everything we are giving it, so don't worry about the inflation. And people, when the elections were there in Uttar Pradesh, they were saying, yes, when सड़कें जब बनेंगी तो inflation तो होगा ही होगा, when infrastructure बनेगा तो inflation तो होगा. This is the kind of attitude the people have adopted. The people are not willing to work in the countryside, and this is the reason that the productivity is gradually falling down. The training, in fact, is inadequate. Skill and all that is not adequately generated. There is no work on artificial intelligence. There is no work on robotics. There is little work on the technology. So therefore, the productivity has been fallen. When the productivity falls down, the output gap will be large. Output gap will be reflected in the GDP, but inflation will be there. So we are reaching to a very bad situation.
Now, you have mentioned about the physical deficit. What is the correlation between physical deficit and inflation? In a layman's terms, if the physical deficit increases, the inflation will increase or decrease?
When the physical deficit or the overall debt of the government will increase, that it should not exceed the Lakshman Rekha of 60% throughout the world, that in every country it should remain within the 60%, because in other cases, it can increase in United States and Europe because they have got the printing power that they can print it, and there is no problem of the people living in the lower strata of the income. Like we have got here in roughly 30 crore state away are living.
No, Professor Arya, I will again stop you. I want a straight answer of my straight question. If the physical deficit is increasing or increase, whether the inflation will increase or decrease?
State away increase.
It will increase. You mean to say if the government physical deficit means the government expenditure power increases, then definitely the inflation will increase, correct?
No, fiscal deficit has got two components. One is the revenue deficit and another is the capital deficit. If the government is spending less on the capital expenditure and doing more on the revenue expenditure, it means that it is doling out the money to the people, those who are working in unproductive environment. So definitely the fiscal deficit will increase. This is the reason in the first question I told you that the inflation is directly related to the productivity.
So for the revenue physical deficit, inflation will increase. And what about the capital physical deficit?
With capital expenditure, the fiscal deficit should remain under control, but the inflation will come down.
Okay. Now my next question to you is there any correlation between downfall of Indian rupee and inflation?
Yes. Now, when there is a depreciation of the rupee, say for example, then the import will become costlier, and when the import will become costlier, it means the inflation straight away imported inflation has come in the this thing. So rupee depreciates only when that is the foreign inflow is less than the foreign outflow. When foreign inflow is less than the foreign outflow, definitely that rupee will be depreciated. Rupee depreciates that our export is not higher than the import. Our demand is higher from the abroad, so therefore the price pressure will be there.
So you mean to say the rupee will depreciate if our import is more than the export? Is it correct?
Yes. Yes.
And then the rupee will depreciate. And once the rupee will depreciate, the inflation will increase.
It will be an imported inflation through oil only, oil and gold and other commodities.
Is there any correlation between the Sensex and inflation?
Sir, 1 minute.
So viewers, we are seeing that I am asking straight questions to.
No, one minute. 1 minute.
Yeah,
let me charge the battery. I will wait. I will hold for half a minute.
Yeah, please. So viewers, I am asking straight questions to Professor Arya, and Professor Arya is giving straight answers. Our endeavor is to enlighten you all about what is inflation, what is the health of Indian economy, because instead of doing some tutu meme, we just want to know the real facts from an expert, which Professor Arya is doing. Yes, Professor Arya, my question to you was, which I have asked now, again I'm asking, is there any correlation of between the Sensex and the inflation? If the Sensex goes up or down, whether inflation also have any relation with that or no?
Yes, sir. With inflation, the interest rate rises. Inflation, interest rate. I am talking about the relationship between the two variables you have asked. Otherwise, they are connected through 7 to 8 variables. I will reply only what you have asked, pointed answer. That when the inflation is higher, definitely the interest rate will go up, and the people, roughly 80% people, runs towards the saving in the safe instrument like post offices and the banks, and definitely the people will not shift towards the market, that is stock market. The Sensex will definitely fall.
Okay. Now, my next question to you is, how much more policy repo rates are expected to be raised? Like we have seen that, like governor under the direction of or with the vetting of MPC, according to you, has raised the repo rates. Is he going to raise further, or now we will see it will come down?
That is the June. We have got a quarterly MPC meeting as usual. It is a scheduled meeting, and the print rate is the final print you must have seen for the April is 7.85. In the May we will have to see how much is the rise or fall. Then accordingly they will take the decision. In my view, the repo rate will be raised in baby steps of 0.40 once again, because the earlier the governor has reduced the repo rate by 1.355. Before that, the governor in 2012 and 2013, they were raising the interest rate in baby steps of 0.25, but it has broken the tradition and it has lowered the interest rate by 1.35 basis points last time. So I think by September, October, it will be further raised up to 100 basis point, taken this into account, 40 basis points.
So what you are saying is bit alarming. If so much repo rate is going to increase, definitely the Sensex will come down. What you say about that?
Sensex is coming down not because of this reason, because it is a contagion effect. It is a domino effect there in the United States. That is the interest rates there was that is around 0% last time, and last time the governor of Federal Reserve has raised it by 0.25, and it will continue to raise for another 2 years in this manner to bring down the inflation to the range of 2 to 3%, which is the normal level there in the United States, that they should not have the inflation rate more than 2%. So now it is around 7%. It will start gradually coming down. There is a stiffness in the labor market there in the United States. The labor is in deficit there in the United States. So this is the reason that the wage rate has gone up. Because of the wage rate, the consumer prices have gone up. The consumer prices have to come down, and the Ukraine-Russia war continue to play out for another, few days or few months. I don't know. It is the God knows. So therefore, whatever the inflation impact will be there, it will be transferred to India also. The reason being is that whenever the interest rate is raised there in United States, the people, that is the FPI, that is the foreign portfolio investors, shift their money to higher yield there in United States. So they remove the money from the market. But in order to get the half of the money there in India, they will have to increase the interest rate, because the corridor is widened now. That is interest rate of 1% there in United States and 5% here in India are still not equal, because the safety in the Sensex is just 1/5 there in what we have got in the United States government securities. So people shift there to the United States when the interest rates go up there. So that problem will continue for a few more days in India.
Okay. Now my question to you is this one of the factor about the declining of the forex reserve? Because as the Sensex is going down and the interest rate in repo rate has now been increased, the FIIs, the foreign investors, will not like to put their money, as well as the import cost has increased. So will this declining forex reserves impact Indian economy?
No, we have got the foreign exchange reserve. Even if we do not do anything and continue to import for another 2 years, this foreign exchange reserve is enough. But the point is, the foreign exchange reserve start piling when the inflation goes up significantly. The import is much higher than export in terms of value or in absolute quantity. Now it is the situation. Export have also increased. The imports are increasing because of the depreciated rupee or the absolute value of the crude oil there in the countries where from we are buying the petrol. So this is the reason the foreign exchange reserve is falling, and foreign exchange reserve has gone up to $644 billion, and now I think $10 to $12 billion have been taken out from the foreign exchange reserve and consumed in the current account deficit. That is to beat the deficit in the import.
What is linear inflation, Professor?
It is the term coined by me only. Otherwise, people talk it in a different way. There are three components of inflation there in CPI. Linear inflation is that if only one variable is there, generally there is a food inflation, seasonal inflation, or sometimes the fall in the pulses. That is the protein products are the feed of the animals, the price of the feed of the animals, particularly the meat giving animals increases, then definitely food inflation goes up. When the food inflation goes up, it is called linear inflation, and it can be controlled through some adjustment. That the pulses, if these are hoarded, and if the onion is exported, it will be banned, and if tomatoes are exported, these will be banned. So something casually can be done. This is called linear. Now it is a well entrenched inflation. It has spread to core inflation because the commodity prices are higher and we are importing some of the products. So therefore the core inflation is higher, and also the fuel price and electricity prices other are also higher. So and well entrenched inflation, that is a complex inflation. So complex inflation and the linear inflation, this way the two terms are explained.
Okay. Now, my next question to you is, recently the government has taken a step to ban the exports of wheat. Now, G7 has very, very vocally opposed it. They oppose this decision of the government of India, although government says no, it's a we have to control the price rise at our place also. Do you think whether the ban on exports of wheat will bring down inflation?
Should I give the straight answer or roundabout answer? Because it involves many other things.
No, first you give the straight answer, then you can explain it to for the benefit of.
Okay. The wheat output was expected to be 105 million ton, but it is now 92 million ton. That is, heat waves in the March have just in some parts of the country have destroyed some of the wheat basically. This is one reason that it will be 92 million ton. The second reason is that when the prices of the oil in the international market are higher, the people produce ethanol, or some of the states are producing ethanol to mix it with the diesel so that they can run the pump set and diesel sets. Right, sir? So now the prices are higher. These are soaring higher there in the international market, crude prices. So in order to leverage the cost there in the farm sector, so they are producing ethanol and the production will still fall down. This either the government knows or the farmers know. But the traders have gone into the market this time because of the Ukraine-Russia war. Russia is the largest exporter of the wheat, and the fifth largest exporter was Ukraine. So wheat has been badly affected export. The prices of the wheat in the international market have gone up by 45%. Now with this 45%, it became lucrative for the traders in India to buy the products from the open market, wheat from the open market, and export to the countries like Egypt and the other countries which are in demand of the wheat from Russia and Ukraine. So this opportunity was opened and roughly 5 million ton was committed. Now what the government has done is that the government generally keep a buffer of 21 million ton for giving the food security, and another 10 to 15 million ton if the war is there. So 30 million ton is there. We have got 3 times of what the buffer stock suggests. But since there is a lot of wastage there in India, this is the figure on papers I have told, that the wheat is rotting in the fields and all that. How much wastage is there? Roughly 30 million ton is wasted when it is lying in the open dust, and this environment termite eats away this wheat. So as such, the export was giving a risk that if the government will not able to liquidate the stock, then it will get the wrath from the people, public also, consumers also, that the prices of the wheat already spiked up there in the domestic market. Atta and wheat, they have already gone up. So it would have added to the inflation. The government has smelt it, and therefore straight away in advance it has banned the export. Otherwise, it would have benefited the farmers. The government is buying at the rate of 20.75 per quintal, and it is sold already in as 3,000 per metric ton, basically, or 20.75 metric ton, or this is 3,000 metric ton.
Okay. So my question is the same again. What I have asked to you is that this wheat export ban will bring down the inflation or not?
It is an anticipated that is bringing down, not
Okay.
that is. It is not a sure case. It is anticipated
Whether
that the
whether 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 this ban of export of wheat will benefit the farmers or not?
export would have benefited. Export you cannot benefit. There is a WTO clause. It is a long discussion. What trade organization does not permit the government of India to export this thing? But since this is a crisis and WTO is in limbo now, so therefore some export was being done. Otherwise, the export is not permitted by the government of to the government of India by WTO.
Okay. Now, one side, our Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned that in the earlier government, and it was also fact also that our earlier Prime Minister, later Mr. Rajiv Gandhi has mentioned that if we transfer 1 rupee, about 15 or 16 paisa reaches. But now, because of the direct transfer, our Honorable Prime Minister says that now if 1 rupee we are transferring, it is reaching 1 rupee directly. Do you think that this transfer of money is also having impact on the inflation, because earlier the far or the weaker section was not getting that much money, so the work the buying capacity or purchasing capacity was not that much, which is there now because they are getting the full money. What do you say about that, Professor Arya?
Yes, it is very correct. It is the one of the reason of inflation. You have rightly pointed out. You have dug out a very pertinent point. It would have slipped from my mind. The reason being is that there was a lot of corruption those days and technology was not there. Had the technology been not there in this particular environment also, that is IT was not there and digital transfer was not there, definitely again that the transfer would have taken away, sucked away 30% of the rupee which goes down and 70 paisa would have reached. Those days there was a corruption and technology was not there, and this transfer manually was an issue. So therefore, the Rajiv Gandhi plainly admitted it that 15% goes down. It could be 18 paisa or 20 paisa, but it was told by the planning commission only based on their assessment that how many poor, how many beneficiaries are getting how much. So that way, Prime Minister is okay that he says that now with the direct benefit transfer, it would have come with technology also. Goel sahab, I tell you one thing very clearly, the government should not be very smart that way. Technology is a natural process. Technology comes from the developed country. We are not developing neither IT nor we are developing anything and Paytm, this thing and that thing. It is coming naturally from wherever it is originating and it is coming to us. We are based on the transfer of technology. We are not creating servers. We are not making any other instruments of the transfer and all that. So therefore we should not be boasting of it. I plainly say, because I also work with the planning commission, so therefore I cannot be easily be fooled that way. So if the technology is coming with the passage of time, then even if the Rajiv Gandhi was there at this time, he would have said yes, 80 paisa or 90 paisa are being transferred. Now, when the people are getting with the direct benefit, I am coming to your question, direct benefit transfer, the state money, the exact money, the calculated money is coming in their hands. They have received the money from the government. Now, with this money, the government does not know their exact level of entitlement. Then their exact level of entitlement, it is to be assessed by the human being only. That whether the people are living below the poverty line, or they could be the beneficiaries, or they are entitled for it or not. So some friction could be there. Say for example, 20 to 30% friction is there. That is the assessment gap is there. With this assessment gap, the people, those who did not deserve to be getting this money, they are also receiving, and when they are receiving, they are spending on some that is the items of their desire. This is the reason that the rural inflation in this country is 1 point higher than the inflation in the urban area, because the people's stomach is full, they are getting their money, and therefore they are buying the edible oil, they are buying meats, they are buying eggs, and this is the reason the inflation in the rural area is higher than the urban area.
Now, I would like to mention two contrary statements. Of one is from the Reserve Bank of India Governor, Mr. Shaktikanta Das. He said that sustained high inflation has pronounced adverse effect on the poorer segment of the population by eroding their purchasing power. And contrary to this, there is a statement came from the finance ministry which says the inflation hurt rich more than poor in FY 2022. Your comment, please.
Sir, this is the reason I told you that the people living below the poverty line, if inflation is higher, it is straight away tax on them, because their income is limited. Their income is coming from the casual labor, and therefore the income is limited. They are not working in any factory. They are working in not any. They are not in job. They are working for themselves and getting the wages. The wages are very fluctuating, and there is a rigidity in the wages. I explain it with one example, that if a person is getting only 350 rupees per day, say for example in Mathura alone, and he is a labor, and definitely his wife is also going for work, and she is also getting 200 rupees. So 5 with 550, they are, that is the education and the health facilities are considered free in the rural area, because we have got a sufficient number of primary health center, as well as the schools education is also free, no expenses for them, and they are not to travel on a that is first class train. Also they travel by the general compartment. So inflation for them is just enough to eat for the day and enjoy whatever the little requirement is there. But when the inflation goes up, how much they can apply the cut to the bread and butter, and therefore their that is the living condition will be highly deplorable. And this is the reason the Shaktikant Das says that it disturbs them the load. But when the government says that it is affecting the above poor people, the government is again correct. That way, the government is trying to prop up these people. The reason being is that after COVID, the saving level has gone down. The people expenses, household expenses on education and this, health, and partly entertainment has increased. Now, when the inflation is higher, roughly by 2.5% or 4%, this is just the double of what it was before COVID. So, therefore, these people, in fact, had to cut down their discretionary expenditure, or they will not go for vacation because they will have to pay the fee for their children. The school fees are being raised, transport fees is being raised because the prices of oil have gone up, and other expenses for the children have gone up. So inflation is hurting the more according to the government. The Shaktikant Das must not have seen this aspect, as we economists study it critically, that the Shaktikant Das statement is also correct. The other statement is also correct. If you look at the household expenditure, roughly 45% goes towards the food, and 25% goes towards the health and education. And still, if the money is there, it goes for the vacation also, because the children now during summer, they used to go to the vacation. So tourism will go up, transportation will go up, taxes, prices will go up. and everything will go up. So it is hurting the middle class. It is not hurting the top upper layer of 10% percentile, that is in the elite class, that's 10%. They can enjoy 10% inflation, 20% inflation, any point, anything they can absorb. But it is hurting the lower middle class and the poor the most.
And what about the middle class?
This is, I am talking about the middle class only, that is called salary
No,
class. Middle class,
but the Ministry of Finance says about the super rich class, the rich class. They have not mentioned about the middle class.
super rich class is not affected by the inflation. Their income will go down. The billionaire which have been created during COVID time, 142 billionaire, now 100, from 100 billionaire to 142 billionaire, they have become, because they are getting the very filtered kind of consumers that is coming from the middle class. Their consumption will go down, so their income will go down. This is the reason the government might be saying that the rich community or elite class will be affected by the inflation.
Now, what are the challenges which you feel Indian economy is facing today? First, I would like to know the challenges which you can explain in length, and then what are your suggestions how to contain those challenges and how to overcome the present situation? Because the condition today, what we are seeing, our neighbor countries, all neighbor countries, right from Sri Lanka, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, I am not taking the name of Bangladesh, they all are facing financial crisis, very bad financial crisis. But India also is because of the inflation, rise of inflation, rise of all the essential commodities, whatsoever, the gas or the oil prices and the pulses, the wheat, etc. So I would like to know what are the challenges and what are the remedies as an economist. What if you will being the finance minister, what will be your act? First, you give the challenges and then the remedies, please. Professor Arya.
See, the remedies all are also conditional with the conditions prevailing in the global environment. That how long this Ukraine and Russia war will continue, how far the Europe and UK and United States bring down the inflation from 8% to 3 and 4% there in UK, but 2% in the USA. As you will see, that is reading will come from the other countries. If the inflation in United States keep falling, then definitely that is we will able to export better, and if we will able to export better, then definitely our condition will continue to improve with the passage of time, because the labor market cannot be corrected within a day or within a month. It takes years together. It depends upon the policy environment. That is how the government has been considering the skill development and how the government was giving importance to the training, on the job training, and what was the policy for the rural education and all that. It is the past kind of things which would require to be considered. Now we are at a stage that if inflation in United States start coming down, the interest rates will go up there, and there will be a condition of the market going up, and the output will pick up. After COVID, we were just picking up, and we estimated the growth rate of 9% this year, but it has now been down revised to 8%, and finally it will come down to 7.5%. 7.5% growth is not enough. The loss which we have done in 2 COVID waves will be recovered in 10 to 12 years. This will be a gradual improvement. But so far as the people being affected due to the non-attendance of the school and also not in a position to afford for their diseases, so that will pose a serious problem to people lives. That is one point. The second point is how long you can continue to support the MSMEs, whether RBI come up with a simple device that the long-term repo operation will continue for some more time and the MSMEs will continue to be given the support, then definitely the employment rate can go up can remain up and unemployment rate will be tolerable just at 7 to 8%. It is a normal rate for us that we can tolerate it, right? So that way, this situation for another 1 year, that is still the Ukraine war, the scar of the Ukraine war and Russia looms large, then definitely the problem price pressure will be there in India also. It is a very relaxed environment if it is there. One thing can be there that China is struggling with the growth for this time, and it will have to face the growth problem for 1 year. So I think the oil prices will start coming down if the Russia and Ukraine come to a negotiating table in another 1 month or 2 months. I told you last time also that it will continue up to at least 3 months because it was a war on principle. So that way we can have the relaxed environment after some time. And since our productivity orientation is very weak, we are not involving each and every person into the productivity, and MSME's productivity is very low. That way these problems are persisting, but in the relaxed environment, these will give us some comfort and we will have got a comfortable living conditions.
Professor Arya, you have mentioned about MSME several times. In India, we have seen that during the COVID, government emphasis was more to give facilities to MSMEs. While in other countries, like I will give you example of UK, what they have done, they have transferred the money directly to the consumer, to their citizens, unemployed or those who have lost their jobs, etc. Now, do you think here also, if we would have during the COVID, if we would have give more emphasis by transferring direct money to the underprivileged or even to the that section which was unemployed or affected by the COVID, it would have been better. While instead of doing for the MSMEs, and as you are saying, the MSME is not doing that good, in spite of getting 10% or rather more injection from the government, which they have announced during the COVID. What you say about that, Professor Arya?
No, sir. Direct transfer would have sparked the inflation state. The reason being that it would have gone for the consumption. The sensible economists are of the view when there is a crisis of employment, the crisis of employment was there with the MSMEs. So therefore, MSMEs were strengthened. See, say for example, if the child being born just now is weak, then give the treatment to the child. But if he is in the womb, and then one can identify that the nutritional level of the mother is weak, then definitely you give the nutrition to the mother, right? Now workers were affected from their original working platforms, MSMEs. They had gone back to their villages, or they were working in the urban area, that is load working, or they were taking load on this. In factories, we have got variety of jobs. Those who take the load on their head and then transfer in the conveyor belt, and then the process goes on. So such type of people were there. So if their business has gone down, MSMEs were affected due to the COVID, due to the lockdown. So therefore, the government has given the support up to 4 lakh crores, and the greening of their loans has also been done, and there is a restoration of the labor and employment. Up to 1.6 crore people have come back to MSMEs. They are working. So it is the right thing which the government has done. The second thing is that the allocation for Manrega was increased. That is 1.1 lakh crore. There also the people have been given the cash there when they are working. This is the reason I told you that we should give only when the people are eager to work, or they are tempting to work, or they are found working, then give them. Otherwise, the productivity at the middle level is very low. The reason is the textile sector is, we are behind Bangladesh. We were earlier behind China. So labor laws and all that, these are the issues. These are the big issues: training, education, environment, and water availability, utilities, all that is very important. Human capital part has to be seen along with the physical capital growth. Human capital growth has also to be seen. It is poorly reflected in Human Development Index. We have come down to 120 number, so that is a pretty bad situation. That way, we should have what the government has done in this given condition when the crisis has been broken on us. So that way, it is the right decision. But what it would have done in the past should have been seen that way, looking at what lies ahead. That is the distance viewer gives their signal much before. It was overlooked. It was not done. Somehow, it is again a very big debate. Whatever the government has done, it was a right decision.
Okay. Do you think law and order situation in the country, I'm not saying our country, any country, impacts the economy very badly?
Sir, it is a very sensitive question because NIA can be applied on me. So I should
No, I'm not
stop
saying,
for
I'm not saying for India. I'm saying like Sri Lanka. Now the law and order conditions is bad there. My general question I'm asking you, don't worry, sedition, the sedition law has been stayed, so there will be no sedition case against you. My question is the law and order situation also have the impact on the economy or not?
Sir, very badly. Law and order affects the economy very badly. I keep investigating. I devote some 2 hours on it every day. That whether the law and order gives has got an impact on the economic performance. Yes, it is. How it is, I will explain, sir. Now, say for example that there are riots somewhere, that the killing was taking place in West Bengal. I will name only the non-ruled BJP states because I hear from NIA. Right now, there every time the people are crowding at one place, that's this rape has happened, and these election rallies are also going on for years together. For years together, the people are crowding that particular place that they have gone to the ground to attend that rally, right? Or if the people are crowding at one place where some tamasha is going on, rape has happened, people are burnt there, some. It means they are not working, they are not putting brain or their mind to their work only. So definitely the output will fall. Now what happened there in Jangirpuri, the bulldozer was run there. The people
Let's not go in that details because as you said, we should not go. Now my next question to you is, you mentioned that the inflation in other Western countries, etc., is always in control. We know that their habits of all the other their countrymen is to spend money. Lots of money they spend either on holidays or eating or enjoying entertainment, etc. Still, their inflation is always on control. While in India, we are not spending that much in all those factors. Still, our inflation, irrespective of any government, I'm not saying this government or the other government, earlier government, we have seen in both the time the inflation has gone up. What is the reason? What you think that this is the reason that those countries can control the inflation in spite of their expenditure power, their income, high income, everyone is having the money to spend and still the inflation is controlled? Professor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This happens because it is because of the TFR, total factor productivity. We have got 3 factors of production: land, labor, and capital. If the technology is not properly mixed with it, then definitely the wastage will be there. And when the wastage will be there, the inflation will be there. State answer. Now I give you one example. Say for example, this is a tomato ketchup factory. There is one tomato ketchup company only till Kisan. Now multinational companies are there. They are making the tomato ketchup. Now when you are processing the tomato, definitely you will have to get the core part of the tomato to get into the sauce or ketchup so that the people find it delicious and consume it. You are not able to set up many factories there. Hello, hello, hello,
Please go ahead.
hello.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
When your processing is turning out so much of waste, definitely that is you are losing the material. When you are misusing the material, your cost will go up, and in the processing as well as in the material, both ways the cost will go up, and the cost once goes up, it is called inflation. These are highly calibrated countries. If you say about the United States, the wastage is zero in United States. Wastage is there only when it is done manually, like at Mexico and United States border. That a lot of that is smoke industries are there because their interest is to have got the agreement of trade with the Mexico and all that. So that way they are affording the cost according to the Mexico. But when it is a poor place there in the United States core area, the wastage has been reduced to zero. In India, the wastage rate is roughly 25 to 30% in a normal way, but in some cases it is 50 to 60% also. The people in the rural area keep processing for themselves like corn or maize or bajra and all that. Their consumption is perfect. But when you come down to the MSMEs, the cost is higher because the wastage in that case is higher. Say, for example, the machines are outdated and there is a small road, like for example, and now you are to make some pieces out of it which are to be used, and this much portion of 2 inches or 3 inches is a waste, it will go for reprocessing. Like LDP, that is low density propylene, which we are using one use but for that's it plastic or other multi-use. Say for example, our milk is packed in the high density. So rat picker will pick up that high density and will resell it to the same milk dairy plant. But here, low density, it is just a waste. Also, in its recirculation, the lot of cost will be involved, smoke will be there, people health will be affected, and the people will have to bear the cost of their treatment. Lungs are damaged and eyes are damaged, so that will add to the cost. So it is causing a problem in India too much because our population is 8 to 10 times that of Pakistan even. And we are one-fifth of United States. So the area-wise, processing-wise, and technology-wise, China could be better, and the worst we could be. The wastage will have to be reduced.
Okay, so it means the wastage has to be curtailed. Now, last question to you. Our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, mentioned about the 5 trillion economy. Now, as an economist, in which year, because he has announced for 2024, now what is your assessment with seeing the current situation? Do you think that India will be 5 trillion economy by 2024 or not? What do you say about this, Professor?
Straight answer?
Yes, please.
Or I will have to calculate it?
No, just a straight answer, please.
It will be attained in 2026.
2026. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Arya, for giving the straight answers to my straight questions. And viewers, we have seen how the inflation and the health of in economy is which rising inflation and health of economy, which our Professor Arya has given the details, and he has given answers to all my straight questions, except one question which he says that he would not like to answer about the law and order thing, which is correct because no one would like to venture where there is a problem. But otherwise, all answers he has given, and he is very hopeful that we will be able to reach to the 5 trillion economy, but not now. It will take time because of the the impacts of the COVID and the Ukraine war, which were unexpected. So thank you very much, Professor Arya. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Karu News, V4 Stream, Manlanu TV, India News, Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan, as well as was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor to bring to you every day new topic. And tomorrow, media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. It's again a thought leadership series, and the topic is rapid growth strategies for startups. Yes, you have heard correctly. Rapid growth strategies for startup, and our guest is Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran, former visiting professor, IIM Lucknow, University of Texas at Dallas, founder Dr. Saran Consulting, California, USA. So please tune in tomorrow for our media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Arya, for giving straight answers to my straight questions.